I stared at my phone, reading the text message for the 5th time. Sorry, Olivia. We won't be attending your tiny wedding. It's just too far to travel for something so small. My own mother had sent that, followed by similar messages from my 3 sisters and both brothers. Not one of my family members was planning to attend my wedding. My fiancé James found me sitting on our apartment balcony, clutching my phone with tears streaming down my face. "What's wrong, Liv?" he asked, kneeling beside me. His warm hand covered mine, but even his touch couldn't melt the ice forming in my chest. "My family isn't coming to our wedding," I whispered. "Not a single one of them." James' face darkened. We'd been planning our intimate ceremony for months. Just 30 guests at a breathtaking cliffside venue overlooking the Pacific. We'd chosen quality over quantity, an experience over spectacle. They called it tiny, like it was something to be ashamed of, I continued, anger beginning to replace the hurt. Mom said it wasn't worth traveling for something so small. James took my phone gently and read through the messages. His jaw tightened as he scrolled. "These are cruel, Liv. I'm so sorry." What my family didn't know, what no one knew except James and me, was that our tiny wedding was actually costing us over $300,000. James had quietly sold his tech startup 6 months earlier for a sum that still made my head spin. We decided to keep the windfall private, wanting our friends and family to treat us the same as always. "Let them think what they want," I said finally, wiping away my tears. "This day is about us, not them." But as the weeks passed, the sting of their rejection didn't fade. Every time I tried on my custom design gown that cost more than a luxury car, I thought about how my sisters wouldn't see me in it. When James and I tasted the menu prepared by the Michelin-starred chef we'd hired, I thought about my father, who would have loved the perfectly aged ribeye. "I can't believe they're being so shallow," my best friend Rachel said when I confided in her. She was helping me address the handcrafted invitations that cost $200 each. Just because you're not having some massive ballroom extravaganza, they think it's not important. My mom literally asked why we were bothering with a ceremony at all if it was going to be that small, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She suggested we just go to the courthouse and then have dinner somewhere nice. Rachel snorted. If only she knew. The truth was, we could have invited hundreds of people and paid for them all to stay at 5-star resorts for a week. Money wasn't the issue. We genuinely wanted an intimate, meaningful experience with the people who mattered most to us. The fact that almost none of those people were my blood relatives was becoming a painful reality. 2 weeks before the wedding, my youngest sister Megan called me. My heart leapt with hope that at least one family member had changed their mind. "So, I've been thinking about your wedding," she began, and I held my breath. "Is there any way you could move it to next year instead? Maybe plan something bigger that everyone could attend?" The disappointment hit me like a physical blow. "No, Megan. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Everything is set. It just seems selfish to have it so far away when you know Mom can't afford to travel right now," she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "And with only 30 people? It's like you don't even want us there." I bit back the words that threatened to spill out. My mother could absolutely afford to travel. She'd just returned from a cruise with her friends, and I had desperately wanted my family there. They were the ones who had declined. "I have to go," I said quietly and hung up. Then I walked to our spare bedroom, closed the door, and sobbed until my throat was raw. The night before our wedding, James found me on our balcony again. The lights of the city twinkled below us, and I was wrapped in a blanket despite the warm evening. "Second thoughts?" he asked softly, sitting beside me. I shook my head. "No, not about you. Never about you." But he knew me too well. "I keep thinking about tomorrow. How perfect it's going to be. The flowers, the food, the music, everything we've dreamed of. And not one person from my family will see it." James took my hand. "I have an idea," he said slowly. "It's a bit petty, but it might make you feel better." "I'm listening." I managed a small smile. "What if we have the photographer take some absolutely stunning shots, the kind that look like they're straight out of a celebrity wedding magazine? And then we post them, not right away, but maybe a month later when we get them back. Just a few that show exactly what your family missed." I considered it. "That does sound petty." "It is," he agreed. "But sometimes petty feels good." I laughed despite myself. "Let's do it." The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Our cliffside venue looked like something from a dream, with delicate white flowers cascading over the specially constructed platform where we would say our vows. The ocean stretched endlessly behind it, blue and vast. My dress, with its intricate beadwork and custom lace, made Rachel gasp when she saw me. "You look like a goddess," she whispered, helping me with the cathedral-length veil. As I waited to walk down the aisle, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Yes, my family had chosen not to be here. Yes, it hurt more than I could express. But looking out at the small gathering of friends who had come, people who truly cared about us, I knew we had made the right decision. When I saw James waiting for me, his eyes filled with tears as I approached. Everything else faded away. The ceremony was intimate and personal, just as we'd wanted. We'd written our own vows, and when James promised to be my family now and always, I felt the first fracture in the wall of hurt I'd built around my heart. Our reception was held in a glass-walled pavilion overlooking the ocean. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks as we dined on 7 exquisite courses paired with rare wines. Our 30 guests sat at one long table adorned with thousands of white roses and candles. A string quartet played softly in the background. "This is the most beautiful wedding I've ever seen," my old college roommate told me wide-eyed. "It's like something out of a fairy tale." I smiled, thinking of my mother's dismissive text. Tiny, she had called it. If only she could see the hand-painted silk tablecloth, the 24-karat gold flatware, the crystal glasses that had been hand-blown in Venice. If only she could taste the caviar, the Wagyu beef, the champagne that cost $1,000 a bottle. Later, as James and I shared our first dance on a floor made of Italian marble brought in just for the occasion, I rested my head on his shoulder. "Are you happy?" he murmured against my hair. I thought about the question seriously. Was I happy? The day had been perfect, more than perfect. Our friends had surrounded us with love. The setting, the food, the music, everything had been exactly as we'd envisioned. And yet, there was still an empty space where my family should have been. "I'm happy to be your wife," I answered honestly. "The rest is complicated." He nodded, understanding as always. "Do you still want to go through with our plan? The photos." I thought about my mother's text again, my sister's casual dismissal, the assumption that our wedding wasn't worth attending because it was small. "Yes," I said firmly. "I definitely do." As the evening continued, I found myself relaxing more, truly enjoying the company of the friends who had made the effort to be with us. We danced and laughed and ate cake that cost more than my first car. The champagne flowed freely, and by the time we cut the magnificent 5-tier confection created by a pastry chef flown in from Paris, I was feeling pleasantly buzzed and genuinely happy. Our photographer, a sought-after professional who usually worked with celebrities, pulled us aside near midnight. "I've already got some previews to show you," she said excitedly, scrolling through her camera. "These are straight out of camera, no editing, and they're incredible." She showed us a shot of our first kiss as husband and wife, the ocean stretching behind us, the setting sun creating a halo of golden light around us. It looked like a movie poster or the cover of a luxury wedding magazine. "Perfect," I said, catching James' eye. "That's definitely one to save for later." The celebration continued until the early hours of the morning. Our final surprise for our guests came at 2 a.m., a spectacular fireworks display over the ocean, choreographed to our favorite music. As the sky lit up with bursts of white and gold, James wrapped his arms around me from behind. No regrets, he asked. I watched the fireworks reflect on the water. Just one, I admitted, that they'll never know what they missed. He kissed my temple. Oh, they'll know. In about a month, they'll definitely know. The honeymoon was even more extravagant than the wedding. 3 weeks island hopping on a private yacht through the Mediterranean. We swam in crystal clear waters, dined in hidden coves, and made love under the stars. It was blissful and perfect, and I almost forgot about the hurt my family had caused. Almost, but not quite. When we returned home, our photographer had delivered our wedding album, a massive leather-bound book filled with the most stunning images I'd ever seen. James and I spent an entire evening going through it, reliving every moment. "They're ready," I said, looking up at my new husband. "The photos. Are we really going to do this?" James raised an eyebrow. "Cold feet? We don't have to if you don't want to." I thought about it, genuinely conflicted. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, to let it go. But another part, the part still smarting from rejection, wanted them to see exactly what they had deemed too insignificant to attend. "Let's sleep on it," I suggested. That night, as we lay in bed, my phone pinged with a notification. My sister Megan had posted photos from her weekend, a cousin's backyard barbecue that my entire family had attended, 3 states away from where we lived, but closer to their homes. The caption read, "Nothing better than family gatherings. Worth traveling for the people you love. Red heart." I showed it to James, wordlessly. "Well," he said after a moment, "I think that answers that question." The next morning, I carefully selected 3 photos. The first showed the ceremony setup, with its flower-draped platform, the ocean backdrop, and the 30 white chairs for our guests. The second was a shot of our reception table, glittering with crystal and gold in the sunset light. The third was of James and me during our first dance, the marble floor gleaming beneath us, my couture gown catching the light, his custom tuxedo perfectly fitted. I uploaded them to Instagram with a simple caption. "1 month ago today, I married the love of my life in an intimate ceremony overlooking the Pacific." It was exactly the wedding we wanted. Small, meaningful, and absolutely perfect. #JustMarried, #1-month anniversary. Then I waited. It didn't take long. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up with notifications. First came the likes and comments from friends who had been there, reminiscing about how beautiful the day had been. Then came friends who hadn't attended, expressing awe at the images. And finally, predictably, came my family. My youngest sister was first, sending a private message that simply said, "WTF, Olivia?" Then my other sisters, commenting publicly on the photos with variations of "This doesn't look tiny to me," and "Why didn't you tell us it was going to be like this?" My mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "I need to talk to you right away. Please call me back." I showed the phone to James, who was working on his laptop beside me. He set it aside and read through the notifications. "Feel good?" he asked, his expression carefully neutral. I considered the question. Did I feel good? There was a certain satisfaction in their shocked reactions, yes. But underneath, it was something else. A deep sadness that they had only cared once they saw how expensive and elegant the wedding had been. Not because they had missed an important day in my life, but because they had missed something impressive and exclusive. "I don't know what I feel," I admitted. Vindicated, maybe, but also disappointed all over again. James nodded. "That's fair." My phone rang again, my mother for the 3rd time. With a deep breath, I answered. "Olivia," she said immediately, "I don't understand. Those photos, that was your wedding." "Yes, Mom. That was my wedding. The tiny one you all decided wasn't worth attending." There was a pause. "But it looks? I mean, it must have cost." "A lot." I finished for her. "Yes, it did. But how? I mean, you and James. When did you?" I cut her off. "Does it matter? Would you have come if you had known it was going to be like that?" If you had known there would be celebrity-worthy photos to post on your social media. The silence on the other end of the line gave me my answer. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and turned to James, tears streaming down my face. He opened his arms, and I fell into them, letting the complex mix of emotions wash over me. I know it doesn't feel great right now, he murmured against my hair, but you deserve to stand up for yourself. I nodded against his chest. I just wish they had come because they loved me, not because they missed out on something impressive. As the day went on, more messages arrived from extended family members, old friends, even my high school English teacher, who followed me on Instagram. Everyone wanted to know more about the spectacular seaside wedding they had seen in my photos. My brother, who had been silent until now, finally texted, "Those pictures are insane. The ceremony looks amazing. I'm sorry I missed it." At least he had apologized, which was more than the others had done. I sent back a simple thank you and left it at that. By evening, my mother had moved from shock to indignation. Her latest voicemail insisted that I should have been honest about the scale of the wedding, that she would have made every effort to attend had she known, and that I had deliberately misled the family. James listened to it with me, his expression darkening. "That's quite the rewriting of history," he commented. "You invited them. They declined. End of story." I sighed, putting the phone down. I knew this would happen. They're making it my fault somehow. "Do you regret posting the photos?" he asked carefully. I thought about it. "No," I said finally. "They made their choice. They have to live with it. I don't owe them protection from their own bad decisions." He smiled slightly. "That's my girl." Later that night, as we prepared for bed, I received one last text. It was from my youngest sister, Megan. "I really messed up, didn't I? The wedding looked beautiful. You looked beautiful. I'm sorry I wasn't there." It was the first genuine apology I'd received, and it made my eyes sting with fresh tears. "What do you think?" I asked James, showing him the message. "Should I respond?" He considered it. "That seems sincere. Maybe there's one bridge worth not burning." I nodded and typed back, "Thank you. It was beautiful. And yes, I missed having you there." Her response came quickly. "Can I come visit soon? I want to hear all about it. The real stuff, not just what the pictures show." Despite everything, I felt a small spark of hope. "Yes," I replied. "I'd like that." As I set my phone aside, James pulled me close. "You okay?" I nestled against him, thinking about the day, about the wedding, about family, both the one I was born into and the one I had chosen, starting with the man beside me. "I will be," I said. And for the first time since those rejections had started rolling in months ago, I truly believed it. The morning after posting the wedding photos, I woke to 37 missed calls and over 100 text messages. My family had moved from shock to outrage overnight. How dare I not tell them about the extravagance? How could I have let them miss such an important event? Didn't I know how this made them look to everyone else? Not one message contained a genuine apology. Not one acknowledged that they had chosen not to come. "They're rewriting history," I said to James over coffee. "According to my mother, I misled them about the wedding, as if I owed them a full budget breakdown before they would consider attending their own daughter's ceremony." James reached across the table and took my hand. "What do you want to do? You can block them all for a while if you need space." I shook my head. "No, I think I need to have this out once and for all." My phone rang again, my oldest sister this time. With a deep breath, I answered and put on speaker so James could hear. "Olivia," she began without greeting, "I can't believe you would do this to us. You made us look terrible." "I did nothing to you, Kate. You chose not to come to my wedding because you decided it wasn't worth the trip for something small. Those were your words, not mine. But you never told us." "Told you what? That it was important to me? That I wanted my family there? Because I did tell you those things and you still said no." There was a pause. "You know what I mean." You never told us it was going to be so fancy. I closed my eyes, trying to control my anger. So you're saying you would only have come if you had known there was expensive food and flowers? That you needed the promise of luxury to show up for your own sister? That's not fair, Kate protested. Mom can't afford to travel all the time, and… Mom took a cruise last month, I interrupted. She posted pictures from 4 different countries. Don't tell me she couldn't afford a 2-hour flight. Another silence. Then, in a smaller voice, it looked really beautiful, Liv. It was, I said flatly. You missed it. After I hung up, James pulled me into a hug. You okay? I nodded against his chest. Actually, yes. It feels good to finally say these things out loud. Over the next week, similar conversations played out with other family members. My brothers were less confrontational, but equally self-justifying. My father, divorced from my mother for a decade, sent a card with a check and a note that read simply, "Congratulations! Wish I had been there." As if he hadn't also declined the invitation. Only Megan, my youngest sister, seemed genuinely remorseful. She arrived for her promised visit 2 weeks after the photos went viral within her family and social circle. When I opened the door to her, she immediately burst into tears. I'm so sorry, Olivia. I can't believe I missed your wedding because I thought it wasn't going to be impressive enough. Her honesty was refreshing after all the deflection from the others. I hugged her tightly. Come in. I have about 1,000 pictures to show you. Over glasses of wine, I walked her through our wedding album. She gasped at the details, the hand-painted place cards, the custom cocktails named after milestones in our relationship, the vintage car that had taken us from the ceremony to the reception. It's not just that it was expensive, she said quietly, studying a photo of the flower arrangements. It's that it was so perfectly you and James. I see that now. All these touches, they tell your story. I felt my throat tighten with emotion. That's exactly what we wanted. A day that reflected us, not some cookie-cutter production. I really screwed up, she said, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes. When I got your invitation and it said 30 guests, I just assumed. She trailed off, embarrassed. You assumed it wasn't worth your time, I finished for her. She nodded miserably. Mom kept saying it was going to be some quick ceremony at a park or something. She said you were probably just trying to save money, and we could celebrate properly later. This was news to me. Mom said that. I never told her anything like that. I know that now, Megan said. After seeing the photos, I realized she had just made assumptions. We all did, and we were wrong. As much as it hurt to hear, I appreciated her honesty. Thank you for admitting that. You're the only one who has. The others are just embarrassed, she said. They know they messed up, but they're trying to save face by making it your fault somehow. And what about you? I asked. Aren't you embarrassed too? She looked me straight in the eye. Yes, but I'm more sad than embarrassed. I missed my sister's wedding because I was shallow and thoughtless. I don't want to compound that mistake by being too proud to admit it. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Having just one family member acknowledge the truth meant more than I had expected. That evening, James joined us for dinner. He was cautious around Megan at first, protective of me, but warmed up when he saw her genuine remorse. Can I ask? Megan ventured after her second glass of wine. I mean, I know it's none of my business, but how did you afford all that? The wedding looked like it cost a fortune. James and I exchanged glances. We had kept his business success private for various reasons, including not wanting family members to treat us differently or ask for money. It did cost a fortune, James said simply. I sold my company last year. Megan's eyes widened. That little app startup? Someone bought it. He nodded. For a lot more than we expected. We didn't tell anyone because we wanted to figure out our next steps without everyone weighing in. So when Mom was saying Olivia couldn't afford a real wedding, "We could have had 10 weddings," I said dryly. Money wasn't the issue. We wanted something intimate and meaningful, not a big show for hundreds of distant relatives and old college acquaintances. "Which makes it even worse that we didn't come," she said softly. "When you invited only 30 people, you were saying we were among your most important relationships." "Yes," I said simply. The realization in her eyes made my own fill with tears. The next morning, Megan insisted on seeing all the wedding videos, the menu cards, everything we had saved from the day. She listened intently as I described moments that hadn't been captured in the photos, the brief rain shower that had stopped just before the ceremony, the impromptu dance circle that had formed around midnight, the shooting star we had seen during our first dance. "I have a proposal," she said as we finished brunch. "What if we had a small reception party here? Just for family. Nothing fancy, just a chance for everyone to celebrate with you. See the photos and videos, and honestly, to apologize face to face." I hesitated. I don't know Megan. Most of them still seem more angry at me for making them look bad than sorry they missed it. "Let me work on them," she said earnestly. "I think they need a chance to make amends, even if they're too stubborn to admit it yet." I looked to James, who shrugged. "It's your call, Liv. But if it would help you find closure with your family, I'm not opposed." After Megan left, promising to talk to the others, I found myself surprisingly emotional. "Do you think I should do it? Have this family reception?" James considered the question. "I think it might be the bridge they need to admit they were wrong without losing face completely. People often need a path to redemption that doesn't require total humiliation." "When did you get so wise?" I asked, kissing him softly. "I've been watching a lot of therapy TikToks," he joked, making me laugh. 2 days later, Megan called with an update. "Everyone's in," she said excitedly. "Mom was the hardest to convince, of course, but Dad agreed right away. And once the brothers said yes, she didn't want to be the only one not coming." "Did you tell them about James' business success?" I asked, suspicious of their sudden enthusiasm. "Absolutely not," she said firmly. "That's your news to share or keep private. I just told them this was their chance to see what they missed and to repair their relationship with you." We set a date for the family reception, 3 weeks away at our apartment. I spent those weeks oscillating between anticipation and dread. Part of me wanted reconciliation, but another part remained deeply hurt by their initial rejection and subsequent deflection of responsibility. James supported me through the emotional roller coaster, never suggesting I should simply forgive and forget. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together," he assured me. "If they apologize, great. If they continue to make excuses, we'll deal with that too." The day of the family gathering arrived. We had decided to keep it simple. Good food catered from our favorite restaurant, the wedding album and videos ready to share, but no elaborate decorations or formal atmosphere. This wasn't a second wedding reception. It was a family meeting with hors d'oeuvres. My father arrived first, awkwardly presenting us with a crystal vase. "Congratulations again," he said, hugging me stiffly. The photos were quite something. "Thank you for coming," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. My brothers arrived next with their wives. They seemed uncomfortable, but made an effort, complimenting our apartment and asking James about his work. When my mother and 2 older sisters walked in together, the tension in the room thickened. My mother surveyed the apartment with raised eyebrows, no doubt calculating its value based on the view and the address. "Olivia," she said, ere kissing my cheek, "your place is lovely." "Thanks," I replied. James found it. An awkward silence fell. Megan caught my eye from across the room and gave me an encouraging nod. Once everyone had a drink in hand, James touched my elbow gently. "Should we show them the wedding video?" I nodded, and he directed everyone to the living room where he had set up a screen. As the video began playing, showing the stunning venue, the carefully curated details, and finally me walking down the aisle on a carpet of rose petals, I heard my mother gasp softly. The room was completely silent as they watched the ceremony, the reception, the first dance. When the video ended with our sparkler exit to the vintage Rolls-Royce, my oldest sister Kate had tears streaming down her face. "It was perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." I swallowed hard. Yes, it was. My mother cleared her throat. "Olivia, I think I speak for all of us when I say—" She paused, seeming to struggle with the words, "when I say that we made a terrible mistake." I held my breath, not daring to hope for a genuine apology. "We should have been there," she continued. "Regardless of how big or small, fancy or simple the wedding was going to be. You're my daughter, and I should have been there on your wedding day." I felt tears threatening, but held them back. "Yes, you should have." "I'm sorry," she said, and the words seemed to cost her greatly. "Truly sorry. Not because the wedding turned out to be spectacular, but because I missed it. Because I hurt you." One by one, my other family members offered similar apologies. Some were more graceful than others, and none mentioned the obvious fact that James and I had significantly more money than they had realized. Instead, they focused on the relationship damage they had caused, the special day they had chosen to miss. As the evening went on, the atmosphere gradually lightened. My brothers asked James about the honeymoon, genuinely interested in our experiences. My sisters flipped through the wedding album, asking about specific moments and guests. My father, in a quiet moment, told me he had never seen a more beautiful bride. When they finally left, loaded down with leftover food and copies of some wedding photos, I collapsed onto the sofa beside James. "That went better than I expected," I admitted. He put an arm around me. "Your mom's apology seemed sincere." Eventually, I agreed, once she got past her pride. "Do you feel like things are repaired?" I considered the question seriously. "Not entirely. I don't think I'll ever forget that they all chose not to come. But it's a start. At least now they've acknowledged they were wrong, instead of trying to make it my fault somehow." A week later, a large package arrived at our door. Inside was a beautiful custom quilt made from photos of the wedding printed on fabric squares. A note from all my family members was attached. "We can't go back and be there on your day, but we hope this helps you remember it always. With love and deepest apologies." I ran my fingers over the quilt, taking in the images, James and me during our first dance, the sunset over the ocean during our vows, the joy on our faces as we fed each other cake. "It's beautiful," James said, examining it beside me, "and unexpected." I nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions. The quilt couldn't erase what had happened, but it represented a genuine effort to make amends. That night, as we lay in bed under the new quilt, James asked, "Any regrets?" About posting those photos. I thought about the question. The photos had caused a family crisis, yes, but they had also forced a necessary confrontation that might otherwise have festered beneath the surface for years. "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it. Sometimes the truth needs to come out, even when it's uncomfortable." They needed to face what they did, and I needed to stand up for myself. He kissed my forehead. "For what it's worth, I think you handled it all with grace. More grace than I would have managed in your position." I snuggled closer to him. The irony is, I would have been just as happy with a small courthouse ceremony if they had been there to witness it. It was never about the fancy details. It was about celebrating with the people who matter most. "I know," he said softly. "That's why I love you." 6 months later, we hosted a dinner party for our first anniversary. My entire family attended, bringing thoughtful gifts and genuine warmth. The wounds hadn't completely healed, perhaps they never would, but we had found a way forward. My mother pulled me aside as she was leaving. "I learned something from all this," she said, her voice uncharacteristically humble. "I learned that showing up is what matters, not how fancy the occasion is or what's in it for me, just being there for the people you love." I hugged her, feeling the last piece of ice around my heart begin to melt. Better late than never, Mom. As I closed the door behind our last guest, James wrapped his arms around me from behind. Happy. I leaned back against him, thinking about the journey we had been on. The beautiful wedding day, the painful family rejection, the messy path to reconciliation. Getting there, I answered honestly, one day at a time. He turned me in his arms, so I was facing him. You know what I was thinking? Maybe for our 5th anniversary, we could renew our vows. Small ceremony, just family this time. I smiled at the symbolism of his suggestion. A second chance, a healing ritual. I'd like that. As long as you're there, the rest is just details. I'll be there, he promised. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. As we stood in our apartment, surrounded by the evidence of our life together, I realized something important. The $300,000 wedding had been spectacular, yes, but the photographs that truly mattered weren't the ones we had posted to provoke my family. They were the ones we kept in our hearts, the moments of connection, forgiveness, and growth that no camera could capture. I had wanted my family to regret missing my wedding day, and they did deeply. But more importantly, we had all learned something valuable about what really constitutes a tiny wedding. It's not about the budget or the guest list or the venue. A tiny wedding is one where love is restricted, where priorities are misplaced, where connections are devalued. By that definition, our wedding, despite its lavish details and hefty price tag, had been exactly what we'd wanted from the beginning. Intimate, meaningful, and filled with genuine love. The kind of love that can weather rejection, stand firm in its worth, and still leave room for reconciliation. Not tiny at all, but immeasurably vast.